What did I read in 2024? This is my reading wrap-up video. I'm aware that it's already February. I'm a little late, but I simply didn't have time in January to film this or to edit or whatever. So here we are. So I read 19 books in 2024, which is less than I wanted. But yeah, nothing to do about that anymore. So this video will be divided into 5 parts, starting with the 1-star reviews, and we will end with my favorite reads of the year, the 5 stars. So the first book I'm going to discuss is my only 1-star review book of the year, and that is Bartleby the Scrivener. And actually it was a short story, and thank God for that, because I cannot imagine reading more of it than the, I think, 30-ish pages it was. You know, I could go into detail why I didn't like this book and tell you all about it, but I prefer not to. And that is all you need to know. So the next books are 2-star reviews, and I'm looking at my iPad to make sure I do not forget any of them. Oh yeah, okay, so the first one is The Scarlet Letter. This was actually the first real old classic that I've ever read, and probably also the last. No, but you know, I found it a very interesting story to study because we had to read it, or it was on a reading list for one of my English classes. But the actual reading experience, I didn't really enjoyed it. Let's just say it like that. Next, I read I Want to Die, But I Also Want to Eat, whatever this is. So I also didn't like this one. I really thought it was going to be a story and not so much like an interview, what it is, about, yeah, between the main character and their psychiatrist. It's just not what I expected, so it's kind of disappointing. And then the last 2-star is Bunny by Mona Awad. Listen, I honestly believe that I am too stupid to understand this. I was so confused throughout the entire book. Well, actually in the beginning I kind of had like an idea or like a theory of what was going on, but somewhere in the middle something happened which made my own ideas, theory, practically impossible to be true, to be actually the plot. So from then on I was lost, and I didn't come back. And then I went online, and it seems that everyone knew what was going on. Everyone had these theories that actually made sense. So it is a masterpiece in its own way, and I do think it's good, but personally I didn't really get it, and it also took me quite a while to get through, so that's why I give it 2 stars. I'm gonna build a stack in here. If there is any background noise, it's my dog. Wait, I'll show you. Nuko! Meet Nuki. And Nuki, meet the camera. Okay, you wanna go? Okay. Short intermezzo. The most books that I read this year are actually in the 3-star category, which is I liked it, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't very special. That's like kind of the vibe for the books that I'm about to show you. So I actually have a few non-fiction books in this category. First one being Girls Just Want to Have Fun. This is a book about investing, especially dedicated to women. It's a good starter guide, and I think especially if you know nothing about economics at all, it's a good starting point. Another non-fiction book that I gave 3 stars is Filter World. Now this really talks about how algorithms shape the way we define culture. And I also read a memoir, When Bread Becomes Air, which I always find very hard to rate. Like, how can I rate a person's life, if you know what I'm saying? So like 3 stars. I think it was good. Then I read another short short story, Cargo, which I found to be okay. And that were all the ebooks I read. Now we have onto the physical copies. I read Anatomy, a love story, very much hyped on Book Talk, and it was alright. I mean, I think it was interesting in a way that I did learn some things. Like, I wouldn't say it's an historical fiction. It's more like gothic tale romance. Not something I would usually pick up, but I do not regret I did. And then I read Mary Jane. This was also very fun to read. I read it in one day. Definitely more summer story. I also read it in June, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it was good. And then lastly, I also rated this book, Seeing Double, 3 stars. This is actually the second book in a series, and I'm gonna use this book to make the perfect transition into the 4-star category, which this one is a part of. I rated the first book in the series 4 stars, and like I said, Seeing Double, the second book, 3 stars. So it's basically about a friend group in college, and every book discusses a couple. So the first one, like I said, really good romance. The second one I had high expectations for because I felt like I was introduced to the characters in the second book of the second book. In the first book, that was complicated, and I was already like rooting for them in the first book, so I had like really high expectations, but they didn't meet them. In fact, I found it quite disappointing. Felt like this book was kind of based on cliches, and it turned out to be a little bit cringe sometimes, so didn't love this one. And I also have not continued the series, and I don't even think I will, because I really expected more. Continuing the 4-star category, I would like to mention this one, La hija del comunista, Spanish book that I read. It was good. Continuing the 4-star books, we also have Shattered Minds, which is a non-fiction book about ADD, ADHD, which I also enjoyed. And then lastly, Boy Parts. This one was almost a 5-star book. I don't know where I read it. I think it was a Goodreads review that said, I'm now trying to find it, I put it on the screen somewhere, but that this book was basically American Psycho, but for girls. And I think it sums up quite good what this book is actually about, or like what the plot is, the themes. It was definitely dark, but I really liked it a lot. And people really said that online that like if you love Bunny, you would love this one. And it's funny because I read Boy Parts right after Bunny, and I don't think they compare in any way, because like I said, I didn't love Bunny, and I thought it was so confusing. This book is not confusing at all. I really liked it and I would recommend it, but not if you're sensitive. Do not read this if you're sensitive. I was a little bit grossed out already, so I don't know, just read it back. But I thought it was really good. So we made it to the top 3 of my favorite books of the year. So starting on number 3, we have The Alchemists. This book felt like a hug to me. Like, to me a 5-star is actually a 4-star, but with like something that I resonate with, or like, I don't know, like it makes me feel something different, or just has a special place in my heart. And I feel like The Alchemist really did that for me. I felt understood in a way. First of all, I was really confused going into this book because I found it in Waterstones at the self-help section. So I thought it was going to be like how to change your life type of situation, but that was not it. It's actually told in the form of a story. Like, I do see why it's like placed in the self-help books, but it really reads like a story, and I really liked it. Then the second place is for Before We Were Strangers. This book is a romance, and somebody online said that if you loved Normal People, which is one of my favorite books of all time. You would love this book as well. And I do see like the resemblance. I do not think it's like completely the same as Normal People. So even if you didn't enjoy Normal People, I would still recommend this to you, because I feel like this is more a romance, and Normal People isn't really a romance. Although a lot of people do say it is. Personally, I do not think it's a romance. But basically it's also like this communication, second chance romance. They meet in college and they like kind of... I'm not gonna say anything, but this one had like plot twists and I thought it was really good. I really felt the connection between the two main characters and I was rooting for them, and I was like, yeah, I love this book. This is, if you want to read a romance, if you're in need for a good romance to read Before We Were Strangers. And then lastly, we arrived at my favorite book of 2024, which is 1,000 Split Suns. This book shattered my soul. I think about this book at least once, but yeah, I really loved it. And that was it. That's everything I wanted to say.